studio with me is Hajia Saratu Kassim, who is the founder of Fertility Support Group Africa. Hajia Saratu, thank you so much for being here. I like the fact that, there's so much technology out there in the world right now that can help people who are infertile. But let's have this conversation about the fact that, around the globe, 5 to 8% of couples that seem to be infertile. But here in Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, even here in Nigeria, I hear that the data says between 10 to 30%. Why is ours so high, and what is responsible?
Thank you for having me. And the first thing about infertility in Africa is the lack of priority given, and the emphasis has always been on the women alone. It's not holistic. The pressure, the stigma, the shame and everything, the woman burns and bears it. So you see, most men are not even ready to go and test. And we don't have preventive here in the country. There's no knowledge. We all just discovered our reproductive. We just find a way to understand when we're most fertile. So nobody teaches you those things. And the emphasis, like I always said, is always on the woman. A woman will be waiting for 10 years and the man will refuse to go and test. He won't check, he will not test, he doesn't know whether he's fertile. I've seen couples who have waited for 14 years. The woman will spend everything she has, do her own due diligence, and she's okay, but the man will not test. And the pressure still mounts on her, even his family.
Okay, so what are we doing right now to change this? I say we as a society, but you on the field, you have a foundation, of course, where you're talking about supporting those considered infertile here in Africa. So what are we doing to ensure that the men, or as a couple, we all go to get tested, especially once we've seen after a period of time that the pregnancy is not happening?
For us, what we do is education. Like when I was trying to conceive, I had to look at, I saw those problems. So after I had my daughters, I created this organization to address these issues. So for our own community, what we're doing, like I said, we're offering 5,000 meals, free testing to encourage them to actually come and check, even the young men. If a man is young and he does his testing now, because we've seen that the prevalence is much in males these days. So if a man is young and he sees it, he could actually store his sperm. And he doesn't, yes.
Okay, I do agree with you, because I'm looking at this research by Nordica Fertility and Fibro Care Center. They said, in the last 10 years, fertility in men in Nigeria have actually dropped by 30%, especially men in the oil-producing states. What can we really attribute infertility in men, which you have also alluded to the fact that is on the increase? What can we say is responsible for that here in Nigeria?
For us, it's our lifestyle, diet, the way we do our things. Exposures to chemical and toxins, we cannot remove that. So there are so many chemicals and toxins that affect male infertility. And these days, our work just allows us to sit in one place. Unlike before, men are agile, they exercise, they move around. But you sit in one place, your testicles, basically, they're supposed to hang the way God created them. But when you're sitting for long, it's heated. So most times we're on the phone, computers, working for long hours without exercising them. So they are heated. And that's one of the reasons we have high male infertility today.
Right. But at the end of the day, if you don't get tested, you won't know there's even an issue. And I do know that when it concerns fertility tests, be it for the man or the woman, they don't come cheap. How can we help in this aspect? Do you think the introduction of fertility treatment as part of the health insurance scheme, do you think that would help?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Infertility is very, very expensive. And when you look at the society, everybody feels that if you don't have a child, you don't have what to do with your money. So you should give it out. They don't have children. What do they spend their money on? Fertility treatment are so expensive. And if you look at this insurance scheme again, a man, a wife, and 4 kids. But for couples who are trying to conceive, that's just their major problem, and yet it's not covered. So it's not fair. So I think we need to have that conversation seriously, and there's need for inclusion of those who are trying to test fertility testing in the part of as part of NHIS, National Health Insurance Scheme.
All right. You talk about the test and solutions and all of that. I do know that aside from the regular way of having, babies, there's the IUI and the IVF and the likes available out there in the world. But let's talk about preventive. You talked earlier about, lifestyle. So what should we be doing now, to actually prevent a scenario such as the one that you've painted?
The first thing is education and awareness. The so-called stigma and shame associated with infertility will not make people to understand. If you look at what, from my own experience, there are people who have waited for 10 years with no major issues. Our doctors are so busy, they can't even educate you. So the first thing we need to do is to create awareness and education for our girls in secondary school. For senior secondary schools, I think we should understand when we're most fertile. And then when it comes to diet and lifestyle, most of the things we eat are devoid of nutrients. They are processed. Everything you look at it, we take carbs, 100%. We eat rice in the morning. We should eat a balanced diet, fruits, vegetables. And also, we should avoid most of the relaxers, chemicals in our cream and cosmetics. They've been shown to impact on infertility.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So aside from what you consume, lifestyle changes can go a long way. But, you know, let's talk about, after how many months or how many years should a couple be worried about not having kids? Let's look what the society expects. Like, you're married today, the next day you should have a bunch of babies running around. But you as the expert, at what point should a couple consider going in for testing to ascertain if there's an issue or not? Is it a test you believe should be done prior to getting into that union, or while in the union? How long should it take before they go for these checks?
I always advise, usually it's supposed to be for a year, but if you're older than 35, because we know fertility decline with age, so for people older than 35, we advise to go for testing after trying for 6 months straight, so you can go for testing.
Right. Okay. So, and someone just actually whispered now, one of the producers is talking about something called secondary infertility. For those who've had at least a kid and struggling to have more, but somehow it's not just working. Do we have any such facilities for such couples here in Nigeria? Yeah,
one of the reasons people go through secondary infertility is infection and also management. You know, people give birth in primary healthcare centers. If we teach those people how to really manage these people, so that after the whole childbirth, they can come out, they can take care of themselves to prevent infection. Another thing is people that have gone through surgeries before, you see that they have issues trying to conceive. But like I said, education on proper care after delivery is very, very important.
So there's a solution. What we're preaching at the end of the day is that there is a solution to infertility.
Absolutely.
Talk to us about those solutions as obtainable here in Nigeria, especially the affordable ones, if any.
None is even easily accessible, but like I said, education is the first, and it's the cheapest. If we educate couples that they are trying to conceive, that this is the problem, this is your solution, this is how you go about it, we'll find out that they are able to get pregnant faster. You see people, at times, they don't know what to do, and it gets to a stage where the only thing they can do is IVF. But before then, there's 1 or 2 things they can do. But because of that lack of knowledge, they don't know.
So you know they have the knowledge now. So share to us some of the things that should be done before you jump to the final point, which is IVF.
The first thing you need to do is your testing. And the advice we give is...
What sort of test? Don't just say testing.
Okay.
It could be malaria and typhoid test. Tell us the kind of test that both the men and the women should
a man
consider.
should do semen analysis. A woman should do pelvic scan. She should do hormonal profile test. And then, if after maybe 3 months after nothing, she can do HSG. That's HSG to check if the tubes are actually patent. But most times, you see, the doctors don't focus on the man, and the woman goes through all these painful tests, and she starts getting stimulated, and the man might be the one with the problem. So the woman will be going for treatment alone while the man is not going. So the doctors should also insist that this man also participates.
Unexplained infertility for couples who have gone through the test that you have mentioned, but yet it's not happening. What would be your suggestion moving forward from there?
I think if you go further, it might not really be unexplained.
Okay.
Technology probably here, we've not gotten to that stage, and we just diagnose some people as unexplained. But if you take a while to understand and really do a proper diagnosis, you will see that there are some things that are actually causing it. Like people that have endometriosis, you see people complain of painful periods, and then nothing is done. And the doctor keeps saying, it's normal, it's normal. It's not normal. But so I've seen a lot of people unexplained, but if you probe further, you see that it's not unexplained per se. Yes, there are some cases that is unexplained, and we say if you've tried for a while, and if you can afford IVF, then go for it.
Right, but how many people can really afford IVF?
Yeah.
If you look at it, even the drugs and everything, nothing less than 2 million. The last time I did a research on that. But for now, I'd have to say thank you so much, Hajia Saratu Kassim, for all that you're doing, and even making sure that people go out there and get tested for free. Well done to you and your team, and of course for explaining and unpacking the fact that, you know, you need to probe further, even though they say you're fine. But if it's not happening, the technology is available. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.